Okay, a few clinical connections. Anemia is a really broad term that basically means I have reduced oxygen carrying capacity. Um, and so the symptoms of anemias tend to have a lot of overlap. If you can't carry oxygen, which of course you use for aerobic cellular respiration, then you're going to be kind of tired. You might have some shortness of breath, and you might have a little trouble with thermoregulation, and your skin might be a little pale because of the no oxygen bound hemoglobin. So, multiple categories of anemias, just to show you a few of them. One is just what happens after you have lost blood or given blood. That's called hemorrhagic anemia. That one is generally acute. You are probably going to get over it if you lived through the injury. The next form is called hemolytic anemia, in which something destroys your red blood cells, like malaria that I talked about before. Lupus also does that, or a mismatched blood transfusion. And when that occurs, you are going to have anemia unless and until you get over whatever that was. What is called aplastic anemia is when the problem is occurring in the bone marrow and not just in the bloodstream. So destruction or inhibition of the myeloid stem cells that make the red blood cells. Some drugs cause this. Chemotherapy drugs sometimes do it. Radiation can do it, either on purpose or on accident. And the problem is that myeloid stem cells make every kind of formed element except for lymphocytes. So they make 4 of the 5 types of white blood cells, they make platelets, and they make red blood cells. So if those get destroyed or inhibited in functionality, you're going to have all the typical anemia symptoms, but then you're also going to have bleeding because you lost platelets, and also infection because of the loss of white blood cells. Nutritional anemia is when I don't have enough of one of those things that I needed to do erythropoiesis, like iron or folic acid or vitamin B12, protein. And sometimes during a woman's menstrual cycle, when she's building up the tissue in her endometrium, the need for iron is actually relatively large. And if the woman is not eating adequate amounts of iron, then sometimes she can have all of the symptoms of anemia related to her cycle. Okay, renal anemia, since the kidneys are really involved in this process, if the kidneys are going down for whatever reason, it could be kidney failure because of damage of diabetes or any number of things, but your kidneys not functioning properly can impact your red blood cell synthesis. Pernicious anemia is anemia due to a lack of B12. But it's not because you're not eating enough B12, it's because you can't absorb B12, because either you have GI problems or in the elderly population, geriatric population, they don't make adequate amounts of something called intrinsic factor that is necessary for absorption of B12. So you can't give them a B12 pill. Injections can help though. And then the hereditary anemias, the one that is now called sickle cell disease, it used to be called sickle cell anemia, and it still does have some of the symptoms of anemia. This one is a single amino acid substitution, and in one of the chains of hemoglobin. It's a genetic disorder. And what happens is instead of hemoglobin folding like it normally does, it actually tends to clump. And therefore, especially in hypoxic situations, instead of a red blood cell keeping this typical biconcave disc shape, the red blood cell will sickle. And why do you care about whether red blood cells sickle? Because a sickled red blood cell does not get through capillaries very easily. So it is the abnormal hemoglobin shape that causes this. Now, historically speaking, it still is a very, very painful disease, but it also used to be very likely to be fatal in the early stages, not always. But people live through it a bit better now. It is impacting about 60 to 80,000 people of African descent now, and also some people of South American descent and some people of Asian descent. But if it was typically deadly relatively young, and it's been around for generations and generations and generations, you would imagine that it would have not maintained the same frequency in the population. But the strange thing is that the mutation in the hemoglobin that causes a single amino acid substitution, it actually is protective against malaria. So if you look at areas of the world in which malaria is really common, typically speaking, because moisture, mosquitoes, malaria, then historically speaking, there have been a lot of deaths due to malaria. And malaria is an intracellular pathogen that infects red blood cells, but it likes normal shaped red blood cells, not sickled red blood cells. So the interesting thing is that if a person is a carrier for the sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease, but doesn't actually have the disease, it actually protects them against malaria and doesn't cause sickle cell. However, they are carrying it, and when they reproduce, the likelihood that they could have an affected child with sickle cell increases. So here is the map of malaria distribution worldwide, and here is the map of sickle cell frequency. Okay, so the highest frequency is in this portion of Western Africa, but notice that you've got some portions all through here as well. Okay, so it's got this strange little situation where one mutated allele of hemoglobin is protective and 2 is likely to be deadly, which allows it to keep in the population. It's called the heterozygote advantage. Okay, there are some other anemias. Don't exercise very much and you'll have fewer red blood cells because you're not really using them. You're not giving hypoxic signals very often. Hypothyroidism will also cause fewer red blood cells just because thyroid hormone supports the metabolism of even the bone marrow. Okay, the next topic is hemostasis. This is the only thing that's kind of complicated about this set of notes.